Hate to break it to you, but winning a bunch of bets doesn't mean you're making money. Just ask any guy bragging about his 12-3 weekend while his bankroll is still crying. When I started, I was just firing bets for fun, thinking nothing big would come of it. 2 years later, I was up 10 grand, and now I'm showing other bettors how to clip the same sports books that used to bury me. And if you're sitting there watching this video thinking that it's still just about luck, you're already playing from behind, because the real sharps are quietly stacking 4 and 5 figures a month, following rules most casuals don't even know exist. So in this video, I'm breaking down the 7 betting rules that'll turn you from trigger happy to sniper precise, and finally start moving you toward being the next Warren Buffett of bankrolls. But first, I noticed that many of you aren't subscribed to the channel yet. So why don't you stop being a parlay princess, subscribe to this channel instead? So now you're probably thinking, all right, where do I start? Wrong question. Because the real edge comes from knowing where not to start. And that brings us to the first rule. You see, if you can hear the reason on ESPN, it's already priced into the line. And this is the point where sharp bettors put the checkers board away and start playing chess. But most casuals don't even realize that the game changed. So let me take you back to the final day of the 2016 Premier League season. Newcastle versus Spurs. Newcastle were already relegated, they were at the bottom of the table, and everyone was saying the same thing. Newcastle have nothing to play for. They won't show up. Meanwhile, Spurs were trying to lock in second place, and people were calling it free money. Like, how could they lose to a team that's already down? But I'm a Newcastle fan, so when we smashed them 5-1, even after going down to 10 men, I was losing it. And my buddy, who's a Spurs fan, let's just say, he wasn't exactly sharing the celebration pints. And that's the problem with narratives. They sound great, but they're worthless in a bet slip. So when you think it's a must-win game, that's not analysis, that's just noise. And the books love it because the story you're betting on is already baked into the odds before you even click place bet. So here's a pro tip for you. If you want to make a profit, just do the opposite of what everyone else is doing. And betting against the narrative is one of those things. But staying disciplined enough to actually do it, that's the hard part. That's because most bettors crack. They get emotional and end up making lousy bets with no rhyme or reason. That's why I built a private group. That way we can keep each other accountable, make sure we're making all the right choices, and actually make some money. No picks or fake guru nonsense, just a room full of people who actually stick to the plan. So if you want to join, the link's in the description. Alright, moving on to rule number 2, and before we even talk profit, you've got to know exactly how the books make theirs. Because they're not just hoping you lose, they've rigged the system to give themselves an unfair advantage. Think of how casinos play roulette. You've got red and black, which feels like 50-50, right? But then there's that sneaky little green zero. That's the house edge. Well, sports betting works the same way. Only instead of green, it's called the VIG. And it's quietly taking a cut out of every bet you make. Here's what I mean. Let's say 2 teams are evenly matched. A fair line would be plus 100 on both sides. But the book sets it at negative 110. Now, if $110 comes in on both teams, the sports books pay $100 to the winner and keep $10 for themselves. That's how they print money regardless of the result. So if you're trying to win long term, you're not just beating the other bettors. You've also got to beat the VIG, which is why 97% of sports bettors lose money. But the good news is, most people are out here firing gut feel parlays and betting like a degenerate, so there's really no competition there. And if you can just follow a simple system, even a basic one, you're already ahead of most bettors. Which takes us to rule number 3. This is one of the most important mindset shifts you can make, and it's what 99% of sports bettors overlook. Here's what I mean. It's kind of like throwing your entire life savings into a flashy startup because it sounds like the next big thing. But you don't do market research or follow due diligence. And in less than 6 months, that company's going bankrupt. And so are you. That's how most people bet on sports. If you don't treat betting like smart investing, you're gonna lose. There's no way around this. So here's what the pros do instead. They treat every bet like a trade. They look for value in the market. And they think in decades, not the big game on the weekend. So if you're starting from scratch, here's what you need to do. Set a bankroll, define your unit size, and only bet when there's actual value. And how do you find those good investment bets? That's where rule number 4 comes in. So the trick here is to place a 6-leg parlay at plus 900 odds, because your cousin's old coach used to train the starting point guard and he's locked in. Just kidding, don't become a parlay princess if you don't want to lose money. I've been there. I used to build these stupid parlays, thinking I had found some secret tip from some washed up punter on Twitter. Then I'd watch one leg miss, and just like that, I'm back to square one. I mean, yeah, it's fun, but it's not a strategy. So if you want to make real money betting, you can't rely on vibes or hot streaks, you need an edge. And that comes from the numbers, meaning you've got to follow a math-backed approach. That means using expected value, tracking market movement, and leaning on real data to find smart bets, while dodging the traps that drain most bankrolls before the season's even over. One way to do that is to track every bet. I know it's pretty tedious, but if you're not going to do it, you'll have absolutely no clue what's actually making you money and what's draining your accounts. But don't worry, you don't have to start from scratch, because I built a bet tracker that logs every unit and spots trends before they sneak up on you. So if you want to grab it, I'll drop the link in the description below. Alright, now we're getting to the fun part. Because rule number 5 is where we take everything we've covered so far and put it to work. Say you're buying a new phone. One store has it for $700, another has it for $650, but it's the same phone. Obviously you'd go with the cheaper one. But in sports betting, most people just take the first line they see and call it a day. This is one of the biggest differences between casual bettors who only break even and pros who actually make profit. Pros treat every bet like a business expense, and they always want the best price. If you want to follow in their footsteps, take 30 seconds to check other sports books before placing any bet. You'll be surprised how often you'll find better odds just sitting there. And if you want to make that easier, there are tools out there that scan everything for you and save a ton of time. But you gotta remember, tools are not 100% error-free. And just because you use them doesn't mean you'll win every time, because there's such a thing called variance. And your job is to survive it without emotionally detonating your bankroll. Which brings us to rule number 6. If you want to keep money flowing even if you're losing, you gotta follow these 3 easy steps. Step 1. Before you even think about strategy, you need to ask, how much can I wager without feeling pressure? That's your emotional bankroll. So if your bet makes you anxious, you know you're over your limit. And when you cross that line, logic goes out the window and tilt takes over. Which takes us to step 2. If you want to keep emotion out of the equation, here's what sharp bettors do. They don't bet random amounts. They use units, a fixed percentage of their bankroll, which is usually 1 to 2%. That's it. So if your bankroll is $1,000, you're betting $10 to $20 per play. And step 3. Don't scale up just because you love the pick. That's the fastest way to go broke. Because at the end of the day, confidence is a feeling, and feelings don't pay. Discipline does. So here are my non-negotiables. Never bet more than 2% of your bankroll on a single play. Never have more than 10% of your bankroll in play at the same time. Track your bets and stop betting in markets where you consistently lose. But even if you do everything right, there's always a chance you'll hit a setback big enough to shake you. It might only come around once every few years, but when it does, it stings. I've been there once. My bankroll was up, confidence sky high, then out of left field, 12 straight losses. When that happens, most bettors spiral, second-guessing every pick and breaking every rule. But I had one simple protocol. Usually you reset your unit size once per week. But in the rare situation that your bankroll drops 20% midweek, say from $10,000 to $8,000, it's too risky to stick to the same unit size at 1%. So pause, recalibrate, and reset your unit size to 1% of the new bankroll. So now you're betting $80, not $100. It seems small, but it's got a huge impact. It creates breathing room, stops the panic, and keeps you in the game. And this one rule makes sure one bad month doesn't wipe out half of your bankroll. Now, if you want the rest of the system I use to actually grow a bankroll without chasing or relying on locks, I put it all in one quick video. Just click the link on the screen now, and I'll show you how to put it into play starting today.